So I think what's really important now is for teachers to have access to all of these resources. So we as together as one ecosystem, STEM ecosystem, will be able to navigate and the use of AI can be maximized for teachers' use and learners can use it as well. And it was a really good session. Would you agree? Yes, definitely. And so we'll continue the discussion this morning and to talk about how we can use STEM to connect to social emotional learning, which I think is very important. We have a project in the Philippines that integrates STEM and SEL, and be very listening to this session. Let's welcome friends, Pam Davis.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, this is amazing as far as conferences go, and I've been on a couple, a couple of tours. So thank you, Sal, thank you, Kelly, thank you, everybody who had anything to do with this. This has been a great opportunity to network and learn. Well, I guess we can, yeah. Oh, no, you're not on. Okay. You guys have a copy of my slideshow? Because I can just use my computer. I have an adapter. I have an adapter at my table. You want me to run?
The green one, just click the green one.
Okay. There we go. Okay, success. I love technology, honestly, I do. Okay, my name is, I am Dr. Pamela Davis, and I'm the founder and CEO of Wellbotics. And the slide tells you a little bit about me, but when I tell my story, I love alliteration. So I always talk about the idea that my experience in education has gone from micro to macro. I've seen almost everything in between in the field of K-12. I started as a kindergarten teacher, and I actually did some time as the policy chair in a school board. Remember that, Sal? Okay, so I've seen it all. And then also in higher education. My doctoral degree, my dissertation, I looked at the digital divide at the time, but I looked specifically at non-traditional college students who were trying to get teacher certified. And at the time, the teacher certification had just gone online. It was built by folks in Harvard and Columbia. And I had folks that were in a non-traditional college program trying to navigate their way through that. And so what we found worked best was humans, mentors. So we got mentors to help them move through that maze. And then also in higher education, I taught a course called, let's see if I can remember it, Quantitative and Qualitative Research Methodology. So I've been up and down, high and low in the field of education. And like I said, I thought I had seen it all. And then I was diagnosed with cancer. Okay, I hadn't seen it all. Cancer left me physically knocked me physically off my feet, but also socially and emotionally, I knew I needed help. So I joined a cancer community, a gynecological cancer survivors group, and a lot of folks in there were moms. And they were really concerned about how their kids were dealing with the fact that there was cancer in the household. Cancer doesn't just happen to patients. None of these diseases do. They happen to everybody involved in that patient's life. So what I did, knowing what I know about kids and robots, is I created a robot game that had challenges related to alopecia. Kids learned about hair growth, hair loss, the physiology, where did it go, will it come back? But they also learned about the social emotional things that go on with hair loss. I worked with a social worker from that community, and he helped me design some cool activities that talked about the highs and lows of losing your hair from the perspective of when you lose it because of your medication, but then we also had a little section in there about male pattern baldness. So I know a little bit about that too. And the kids loved it. They had a lot of fun. And I have to admit, the social worker had a lot of fun too. He happened to be a Lego enthusiast. Okay, and we were using Lego robots at the time. But I can think of two kids that might show you how different it worked for them, at least, is that one kid was very withdrawn when his mom was diagnosed. He didn't say anything to anybody in school, and very little to people at home. So he had to sit shoulder to shoulder with this social worker to build this robot. They had to fail together. They succeeded together. They made a close connection. And that little boy actually continued working with the social worker on a regular basis way after his mother had been released from treatment. And so I consider that one of our success stories. Another success story was actually the opposite. Little boy got really aggressive. Mom had cancer, so let me hit my sister. And I remember I worked with him, and we sat down and we built a robot that spins tops. It was a top spinner. So if you moved, the sensor would know to release the to release the top, and then the top would spin. But while the top was spinning, we counted. We counted to see how long it was spinning. And while we were counting, we were actually learning about how counting is a mindfulness practice. Just counting, watching a top spin. So he built some tops, and he actually created a mindfulness practice with his sister. After teaching a robot how to spin a top, he taught her. And they got along much better. As a matter of fact, I remember the mom came in just to meet whoever this was that created this mindfulness practice, because he wanted to build a top for her too. So that is where Wellbotics started. But since that time, we've worked in several different communities and done all kinds of things. We started kind of calling ourselves addressing trauma. But we understood that trauma is bigger than cancer. Trauma is bigger than ACEs, if you've heard of adverse childhood experiences. We had a group of first-generation college students, and we built a robot game for them. We've had a church where the pastor left under interesting circumstances. And we had 80-year-olds in that church in what was a group of elder folks, and we built a game for them. And little by little, we came to understand that when you're sitting shoulder to shoulder with someone, and you're building, and you're creating, and you're failing, and you're succeeding, that is where connections are built. And so Wellbotics uses that analogy between robots and humans. I'm sorry, can we move to the next slide? Am I not moving? Because it's moving on mine. Okay, well, I'll just start talking then. Okay, Wellbotics uses the social emotional, Wellbotics uses the social emotional strategies to look at the analogies between robots and humans as a way to understand behavior. If you can change a robot's behavior by changing its programming, then maybe you can change yours by changing your programming. STEM is a reflective practice. And I know everybody in this room is aware of what a reflective practice is. It is the idea of being curious, the idea of looking at things from different perspectives, the idea of just noticing. You do design thinking, you're reflecting. You do the problem-based learning, you're reflecting. And a lot of times when I'm teaching these kinds of practices, I always say, I enjoy spending time with good-looking people. And by good-looking people, I don't mean people who are attractive. I have nothing against them, but I mean people, I mean people who are good at looking, people who are good at noticing, people who are aware and curious. And so what we do is we create robotic skills in people who are good looking, and we help people who have the skills become better looking. by understanding how to build those connections and relationships with people. Okay, what do we begin with? We begin with looking at science, technology, and engineering practices and applying those to the situations that we find ourselves in. When you're working in a space that, this is very distracting. Okay, when you're working in a space that does not have all the technology, all the bells and whistles that you might think a robot needs, we use robots that are operated with magic marker or barcodes. When we're working in a space where we have engineering students, then we use robots that are more advanced. But like I said, we teach people how to be better looking if they're really good with technology. But we also teach good-looking people how to be better with technology. And those are the ways that we encourage relationships and encourage the use of our strategies. I'm an elementary school teacher at heart, so I had to give you a vocabulary lesson. The first word is embodiment. Anybody have any great ideas on what embodiment means already? Do we know embodiment? Have we heard of it? I think embodied cognition was up here before, and I'm talking about embodied agency, which is a little different than embodied cognition in that embodied agency means that you have an agent that is physical. And when that agent has the same behaviors as a human, what you are learning through that agency is a deeper learning. So when you have robots that can move, when you have robots that can think or have programs that can think, when you have robots that can encounter things in their environment, those are very human-like qualities. And so that type of embodied agency actually creates deeper learning than, for instance, embodied cognition or a lot of the other forms of embodiment. And so when we understood that this robot had this connection to kids, we were like, wow, they're really going to learn how to code with this one. But then we also understood that you can't build a robot sitting across a table. It has to be a close connection. You can't build a robot first time, it's good. There has to be some failure and then some success and some persistence. And it's better not to build a robot with someone that you can't at least get along with. Another word is social emotional learning, which we covered a lot already. But I just wanted to point out that we're looking at being a good communicator, a cooperative member of a team, an effective leader, caring and concerned members of their communities, and how to set goals and persist in the face of challenges. This is what learning social emotional skills is all about. But how many people recognize all these skills from teaching STEM? They go hand in hand. It's a perfect match. We usually work with organizations, like I said, that have varying degrees of either supportive, caring folks or technological folks, but we bring other people in. For instance, in some places where we have the mental health as their strength, we'll bring in mentors to help with the technology. And the mentors will sit shoulder to shoulder with the kids or the adults involved and build those relationships, and those relationships are lasting. One of the things that we don't want to do is come in, have some robots, the robots taught you about happy and sad, go use your stuff, see you later. We prefer to come in, here's a robot, and here's a friend. Or here's a robot, and here's somebody you can talk to. And why don't you guys work on that robot together? So a lot of the relationships that we build in Wellbotics are sustained over longer periods of time than our program lasts. And a lot of them are with people from the communities that the folks that we're serving live in. We get near peers from high schools, mentors from businesses, social workers that live in the community and can be reached through whatever programming channels are available that we do our research to find out. And that is one of the powers of our program. We also use those folks to help us design the content. Because I can come in and tell you that, the best thing that's ever happened to me when I was suffering with cancer, or when I had a bad day, or when I was trying to get a promotion, or when I went to college. But if my experience is not your experience, then it's just a nice story to hear. We like people who, if we can, find people with as similar experiences as possible. I remember the first generation college student crew, and both my parents are college professors. So I kind of stood back and watched it work, and I remember the bottom line, the big story in that robot game was ask. Ask for help. Ask questions. And the one time I got to raise my hand, I was like, I asked all the time. I just asked my mom. So don't think that the other folks are not asking. They're asking too. Be okay. Be brave. Along the way, we learned the basics of coding and robotics, and things like optical sensors that we have to learn about actually establish the foundation of artificial intelligence. And so the kids and the adults actually learn a lot. One of the programs that we partner with happily is the CTE Industry Scholars Program, a New York City Department of Education program with CTE high schools where the students get to work with a business. Okay, now I'm understanding what I'm doing wrong. That's so sad. Where the people get to work with a business, and they actually work in our program. And one of the things that we hear over and over again is that the kids who are CS majors especially, are very excited to be able to play games and help people as part of their progress through school. And so we have that awesome connection with the CTE program. In the beginning, we worked with mainly after-school organizations, American Cancer Society, churches. West Harlem Development Corporation is a community-based program. Riverside Freedom School is a summer program. And we worked with a lot of those types of organizations and went after school, found ourselves in places that were small and hot and comfortable in ways that only a human could make those places comfortable. Okay, and we built a long relationship with some of our partners. But after the pandemic, folks started looking at SEL a little differently. All of a sudden, trauma was not something that happened to them. It was something that happened to us all. All of a sudden, the medical trauma of cancer was sadly relevant to most of the people in the world, because most of us have had someone who has been impacted by COVID in a way that is medical, physical, emotional, and social. So we still work with our cancer centers and our communities, and Gilda's Club Westchester is a program that we revisit again and again. The kids in that community know we're coming, but we also work with near peers in that community, so the older kids get to help the younger kids learn how to create robots. And essentially right now, we're making big strides in that community by having some of our graduates come back to help the younger kids. The end is there, the career and technical education piece. If this quote doesn't say it all, it does for me. And it's there are many skills that young people need to develop to succeed in the workplace, including strong social and emotional abilities. Teachers, administrators, and social emotional interventionists play a key role in modeling and infusing SEL skills into the learning community, and ultimately infusing SEL skills into the CTE curriculum helps support a solid foundation for a variety of career paths and gives students the skills needed to thrive through life. But I would actually add one more thing. For some of our students, social emotional skills are going to give them the ability to survive, not just thrive. And I really do believe that having programs that meet all the different ways that kids learn, art programs, movement programs, writing programs, and yes, programs for that kid that just wants to take something apart, put it back together again, and watch it go. Do I have questions? Nope. This time is running short and you guys have a break. But if you need to, you can be in touch with me through any one of these means, and I'll be hanging around after the break.
Wonderful, insightful sharing,
was
Dr. Pam
terrible.
Davis. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. You inspire me, and I'm bringing your story with me back to my country. You just inspire me today how your story can be shared with everyone in the Philippines, and the importance of social-emotional learning as a foundational skill among our learners, so they will have the enough knowledge and skills to thrive in their lives, all throughout their lives. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. Friends, let's give another round of applause, please, for Dr. Pam Davis.
And in recognition again from the STEM Leadership Alliance, we want to thank Dr. Davis just for her amazing contributions that she's made just to the world of STEM and touching so many students' lives. So thank you.